This is a confrontation with the true nature of power. Look at the modern world. Success is defined by shallow, fragile metrics, titles, financial figures, validation from the passive majority. This is not power. This is merely accumulation, a fortress built on shifting sand. True power, the kind that makes you resilient and immune to the failures of the external world, is not found in an achievement. It is found in a stage of being. For Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher of radical self-creation, success was never about comfort or compliance. It was about evolution. It was about the terrifying, glorious, and painful process of overcoming your former self to become the sovereign author of your own existence. He laid out this demanding, solitary path in 4 distinct, sequential stages, a blueprint for moving from a life of obedience to a life of absolute command. Most people spend their entire lives tragically trapped in stage 1, mistaking compliance for competence. The goal is to reach stage 4, the Übermensch, the self-mastered individual. Today, we delve into the core of Nietzsche's wisdom, mapping this journey from the spirit of the camel to the pinnacle of self-sovereignty. Understand these stages, and you possess the roadmap to the only definition of success that truly matters, the creation of an unbreakable self. It's time to stop chasing arbitrary goals and start forging your ultimate potential. Let us begin the journey with the first indispensable stage, the camel, the burden bearer. Stage 1. The camel, the burden bearer. The life of compliance. The path to true power begins not with a bold act of defiance, but with a monumental act of obedience. Nietzsche called this the spirit of the camel. The camel is the spirit that kneels down, accepts the heaviest burdens, and says, "What is heavy? I take it upon myself." The spirit does not question. It endures. It seeks the weight of tradition, the heavy discipline of learning, and the established values of its culture. Its success is defined entirely by its capacity for acquisition, compliance, and inherited value. In the modern world, the camel is ubiquitous. You see it in the student who endures the grinding pressure of a prestigious degree not out of passion, but out of expectation. You see it in the intern who works the brutal hours without complaint, believing the system will eventually reward their endurance. You see it in the dutiful citizen who unquestioningly adopts the political, moral, and social narratives handed down by media and authority figures. The camel's life is governed by "thou shalt." It accepts that there are external commandments, rules, metrics, dogmas that must be obeyed to achieve a recognized form of success. They accumulate degrees, certifications, job titles, followers, and possessions, believing these external weights grant them worth. They build competence, but they lack authorship. We must, however, recognize the necessity of the camel. This stage is indispensable for any genuine pursuit of greatness. You cannot skip the camel. You cannot rebel against a value system you do not understand, and you certainly cannot become a creator of new values in a medium you haven't mastered. The aspiring artist must first be a camel, mastering the techniques and history of his craft. The aspiring leader must first be a camel, absorbing the complex realities of his organization and enduring the necessary trials of hierarchy. The discipline learned here is the only thing that will sustain the creative genius later on. Without the camel's endurance, the lion's liberation is meaningless, and the child's creation is structurally weak. The camel's strength is its ability to build foundational competence. It learns the rules of the game so completely that it can play them better than the rule makers. It acquires the knowledge, the skills, and the endurance necessary to withstand hardship. This resilience is what allows it to carry the weight of profound tasks. It possesses tenacity, grit, and respect for expertise. The camel is the ultimate accumulator of cultural capital, psychological resources, and material stability. It is the phase of building the inner storehouse. The burdens the camel willingly takes on are designed to test its physical and mental limits. These are not merely tasks. They are trials. The long hours, the complex research, the submission to hierarchy, each one is a small necessary form of suffering. The camel embraces this suffering instrumentally, believing that this temporary sacrifice will yield future reward and legitimacy. This calculated endurance is often mistaken for true character, but it is merely character in formation. Yet this strength conceals the camel's deepest, most tragic flaw, its fear of emptiness. The camel constantly seeks to fill itself up with more knowledge, more validation, more certainty, because the weight itself has become its identity. It is terrified of the void that would emerge if it dropped its burdens. The external value system is its psychological scaffolding. Without the titles, the expected roles, and the approval of others, the camel feels worthless. Its existence is an elaborate, well-executed performance for the external gaze. The tragedy occurs when the camel refuses to leave the desert. When the external burdens, the secure paycheck, the social recognition, the fear of disappointing others, become the entire definition of the self. This individual reaches the peak of the external definition of success, perhaps becoming a celebrated doctor or a high-ranking executive, only to find themselves profoundly hollow. They have achieved the success that society wanted, but their soul remains a slave to the expectations that created it. They have accumulated power, but they possess zero sovereignty. They are strong, but only strong enough to carry others' burdens. They are educated, but only learned enough to repeat others' ideas. They are moral, but only righteous enough to obey others' commandments. They live a life of reactive competence, never creative authenticity. The goal of the camel is not to remain a camel, but to become so robustly competent, so deeply disciplined, and so fully informed that the current burdens become too light to be meaningful. The camel must carry the load until the load itself forces the next metamorphosis. The spirit must grow until the inherited values feel like chains. Only then, once the foundational competence has been secured and the external values have been psychologically exhausted, is the spirit ready for the difficult, violent act of liberation. The accumulated competence of the camel provides the ammunition for the lion's war. It is time for the spirit to enter the next stage, where obedience is replaced by a roaring defiance. It is time for the lion. Stage 2. The lion, the destroyer, the life of autonomy. The weary, overburdened spirit of the camel, having carried the massive weight of inherited value across the desert of endurance, finally arrives at the threshold of liberation. Here, in the desolate mountain passes, the spirit transforms into the powerful, ferocious lion. The lion does not ask, "What should I carry?" The lion stands against the greatest beast of all, the mythical dragon of Thou Shalt. This dragon's scales are etched with all the commandments, dogmas, and inherited moralities that have governed the camel's life. Thou shalt obey your superiors. Thou shalt not challenge tradition. Thou shalt seek safety above all else. The lion is the stage of rebellion and liberation. Its only word, its furious, sovereign roar against the dragon, is, "I will." In this stage, the nature of power shifts entirely. True power is not the strength to endure. It is the power of negation, the courage to destroy the external values that hold you captive. This is the existential crisis where you must ruthlessly shatter the idols of the camel's life. This is the stage where the individual declares unilateral independence, choosing self-sovereignty over comfort. This is the moment where the high-ranking executive walks away from the golden handcuffs because the corporate value system is fundamentally dishonest. This is the moment the artist challenges the conventions of his form, or the thinker publicly dismantles the foundational lies of his culture. The lion is willing to sacrifice recognition, comfort, and security for the sake of radical autonomy. The act of negation is the spirit asserting its ultimate right to self-determination. This chaos is terrifying, but it is utterly essential. The inherited morality of the camel is what Nietzsche termed the slave morality, a value system born out of resentment. This slave morality, established by those who lack the courage and strength to live dangerously, condemns the virtues of the strong, pride, power, risk, health, and elevates the virtues of the weak, meekness, conformity, safety. The lion is the force that tears down this protective, life-denying structure. It is the necessary destruction that clears the field for genuine self-creation. Without the lion's roar, the garden of new values can never be planted. The lion is the spirit in its critical phase. It must engage in constant internal warfare against the subtle chains that bind it. This includes the subtle tyranny of public opinion, the comforting lie of inherited faith, and the debilitating need for consensus. The true enemy of the lion is not merely the outside world, but the internalized voice of the dragon, the psychological structures inherited from family, church, and state that preach conformity. The lion is the warrior who must purge his own soul of these alien commandments. The suffering of the lion is the loneliness of freedom. The moment you reject the "thou shalt" of the dragon, you become an outcast. You are no longer legible to the herd. You trade the predictable comfort of conformity for the vast, terrifying silence of self-reliance. This is the crucible where true character is tested. When the external structures of validation are gone, do you retreat or do you stand your ground? The lion must become comfortable with being misunderstood, condemned, and utterly alone, knowing that its self-definition is the only one that matters. To succeed as a lion, you must be a master of ruthless self-honesty. You must not only identify the lies society has told you, but the lies you have told yourself to justify your comfort and compliance. The lion's power is the power to say no to everything that is not authentically rooted in its own will to power. This is where the skills of the camel are vital. The lion has the competence to stand alone. However, the lion is not the final stage. Its power is limited by the very thing it fights. The failure of the lion is twofold. Firstly, the lion might simply become a perpetual rebel, a destroyer who defines himself entirely by what he hates or what he fights against. This lion possesses no inner vision, becoming a reactionary rather than a creator. Such a spirit is a nihilist, capable of tearing down old values but incapable of offering new ones. Secondly, the lion can become intoxicated by its own roar, mistaking its freedom for final authority. It may become cynical, resentful, and utterly incapable of the innocent, joyful affirmation of life. The lion can only negate. It cannot affirm without a new metamorphosis. The lion's task is to create a sacred space, a liberated zone free from external commandments. But a cleared field is not a garden. The roar of negation must eventually give way to the silence of creation. The lion must realize that destruction is only the prelude to a far greater, more difficult task. It must shed its magnificent fur, lay down its tools of war, and find the courage to be vulnerable, to forget, and to begin anew. It is time for the spirit to transform for the last time into the pure, affirming innocence of the child. Stage 3. The child, the creator. The life of self-generated meaning. The spirit has traversed the obedience of the camel, survived the destructive independence of the lion, and now stands liberated and naked in the open field. The final metamorphosis is into the child. The child is the purest expression of the will to power as a creative, life-affirming force. It is characterized by innocence, forgetting, and the self-propelling wheel. The child plays, and through this sacred play, it creates a new world. It is the ultimate antidote to the lion's resentment and the camel's compliance. It has forgotten the burdens of the past and the need to react against the present. It simply affirms, without apology, "I am." Nietzsche describes the child as a new beginning, a game, a self-propelling wheel, a first movement, a sacred yes. This transformation is the moment the soul becomes a genuine artist of existence. The lion frees the spirit from something. The child frees the spirit for something, the magnificent, solitary task of creation. In this stage, power is synonymous with creation. The child creates values out of its own being, not as a reaction to the outside world, but as an overflow of its own tremendous vitality. This is the true success in the modern world, the relentless pursuit of a vision that is entirely your own, regardless of the marketplace or popular opinion. Modern success at this stage is defined not by the size of your audience, but by the integrity of your contribution. The artist who creates because the unique form must be brought into being, not because a gallery demanded it. The entrepreneur who builds a company not to maximize shareholder value, but to realize a unique, necessary vision that improves existence. The scientist who pursues knowledge for its own sake, pushing the boundaries of the unknown. The child operates with innocence, not ignorance, but a profound lack of concern for external judgment. It possesses the courage of the beginner, the freedom to make mistakes, and the vitality to instantly forget failure and begin the game anew. This ability to forget the past is not amnesia. It is a supreme psychological mastery that prevents the spirit from being weighed down by yesterday's errors or successes. The child operates in a state of eternal, vital present. This spirit has completed the revaluation of all values within its own soul. The child does not need a divine text or a political party to tell it what is good. Its value system is built on the principle of life enhancement. What is good is that which affirms its unique existence and contributes to its ultimate self-overcoming. It has abandoned the fixed, universal moral compass and replaced it with a personal, evolving, creative imperative. The key to the child is its relationship with meaning. Having seen through the illusions of inherited meaning, the camel, and the futility of pure negation, the lion, the child recognizes that the world is inherently meaningless, a chaotic dance of forces. This terrifying realization, however, is not a cause for despair, nihilism. It is the ultimate invitation to create. The child takes the chaos and, through its creative will, imposes its own unique pattern, its own personal meaning, its own sacred yes. It uses the void not as a threat, but as an empty canvas. The child is the source of its own gravity. It is the sovereign center of its universe, imposing its unique meaning onto the chaos of existence. The external world, its events, and its people are now merely the material for the child's art. A betrayal is no longer a personal injustice. It is a profound element of conflict necessary to develop the story. A failure is no longer shame. It is the necessary destruction that precedes the next, better creation. The danger of the child, though less critical than the failure of the first two stages, is its possible isolation or the risk of mistaking fleeting impulse for genuine creative will. The child can be careless, impulsive, and sometimes destructive. However, Nietzsche saw this as a beautiful failing, the necessary risk that accompanies radical vitality. The occasional mistake is the price of genuine, unbridled freedom. The great purpose of the child stage is to solidify the foundation of self-sovereignty. It is to make creation, affirmation, and self-authored meaning the default setting of the soul. Once the spirit has learned to create its own law, it is ready for the final integration, the state of being that is the ultimate definition of success. It is time to ascend to the final, commanding stage, the Übermensch. Stage 4. The Übermensch, the Overman, the zenith of sovereignty, the journey through the Three Metamorphoses, from the endurance of the camel to the destruction of the lion and the innocent creation of the child, is not the end. These three stages are merely the means to an end. The ultimate definition of success, the final stage of power, is the Übermensch, the Overman. The Übermensch is not a superhuman, nor is it a biologically superior being. It is the realized potential of the human spirit. It is the man who has fully and consciously integrated all three prior stages into a complete, harmonious, and utterly self-commanding existence. The Übermensch is the successful individual in the deepest Nietzschean sense. He is the master artist of his own life, a living testament to the highest expression of the will to power. This final stage is the ultimate integration. He possesses the discipline, competence, and endurance of the camel, allowing him to execute his will with precision. He retains the autonomy, courage, and destructive honesty of the lion, enabling him to constantly eliminate the falsehoods and weaknesses in his path. He lives with the creative, life-affirming innocence of the child, ensuring his actions are driven by an overflow of internal power, not external resentment or need. The success of the Übermensch is not measured by the world, but by its own inner certainty, its ability to pass the ultimate test, the eternal recurrence. The Übermensch is the soul capable of looking back at every moment of its life, every mistake, every betrayal, every agonizing defeat, and every fleeting joy, and willing it to repeat eternally and exactly as it was. This capacity for total, unconditional affirmation is the practical manifestation of amor fati, the love of fate. It is the final proof that one has achieved a perfect alignment with one's own destiny. This is Nietzsche's definition of true success. Success is the inner certainty that your life, in its entirety, is so well wrought, so fiercely willed, and so uniquely affirmed that you would want no part of it to be different. You have not just survived your life. You have commanded it. The power of the Übermensch lies in their sovereignty over meaning. They have abolished the notion that anything happens to them. Instead, everything happens for them, as raw material for their next, higher creation. When disaster strikes, the Übermensch does not ask, "Why me?" the question of the victim. He asks, "What must I create out of this circumstance to affirm my ultimate self?" the question of the creator. This is the philosophical manifestation of perspectivism in action, the ability to choose the interpretation of an event that maximizes one's own power. This final stage is the antidote to the great modern sickness, nihilism. Nihilism is the despair that arises when inherited values collapse and the individual realizes that their life has no external purpose. The Übermensch overcomes this by becoming the source of purpose. He creates his own values, his own laws, and his own meaning, operating beyond good and evil. The existence of the Overman is the justification for existence itself. They are the answer to life's meaninglessness. The individual who achieves this stage is unbreakable, not because he is immune to pain, but because his foundation is self-authored. His worth is derived entirely from his own will to evolve and overcome, making him impervious to the judgment, validation, or catastrophe delivered by the external world. He is the storm, not the leaf. The suffering of this stage is the necessary tension of perpetual growth, the continuous effort to transcend one's current limitations, knowing that the journey of self-overcoming is endless. To strive for this final stage is the true meaning of philosophy, the ultimate goal of human psychological development, and the highest measure of success available to mankind in the modern world. The Übermensch stands as the magnificent culmination of the human spirit, the living proof that man is something that must be overcome. Outro. We have mapped the demanding, solitary road to true power, charting the spirit's evolution through the 4 Nietzschean stages. We saw the camel build the indispensable foundation of competence through endurance and obedience. We saw the lion perform the necessary violent act of liberation, destroying inherited values to gain absolute autonomy. We saw the child emerge, the joyful, sovereign creator who imposes personal meaning onto a chaotic universe. And finally, we witnessed the Zenith, the Übermensch, the Overman, defined by the radical amor fati, the total affirmation of their unique, fiercely willed life. This is not easy. This philosophy is not for those who seek comfort or consensus. It is a philosophy for the few who recognize that their greatest duty is not to society, but to the highest potential of their own soul. The pursuit of true power requires you to make a choice. Will you remain a camel, carrying burdens that were never yours to begin with, mistaking comfort for security? Will you let the dragon of thou shalt whisper away your autonomy until you are old, bitter, and full of regret for the life you never dared to create? Or will you embrace the chaos, the loneliness, and the self-inflicted pain of the will to power, transforming yourself into a force capable of creation? The modern world rewards the camel, but history remembers the lion and is forever shaped by the child. Your success will ultimately be measured not by what you accumulate, but by what you become. The journey is a constant cycle. Discipline leading to liberation, liberation leading to creation, and creation leading to a higher state of being that must immediately be overcome again. This is the inner citadel of power. Now you possess the roadmap. The path to power is a constant cycle of overcoming, discipline, destruction, and creation. Go forth, command the stages, and let your life be a resounding yes. To the highest standards you set for yourself,